Have you ever woken up with that heavy feeling in your chest, knowing exactly what you need to do but unable to take the first step? It's not laziness. It never was. What if I told you that Japanese philosophy discovered this centuries ago, while the Western world continues to blame you for something you don't control? You've probably called yourself lazy, weak, undisciplined, but the truth is much deeper and, curiously, much more liberating. In ancient Japan, Zen masters observed a phenomenon they considered dangerous: the fragmented mind. They knew that when your consciousness is scattered in 1,000 different directions, you're not being lazy. You're being defeated from within. It's like trying to fill a bucket with holes. No matter how much effort you put in, the water always escapes. Have you been through this? That to-do list that only grows while you stay frozen, scrolling through your phone feed, knowing you should be doing something else. The problem isn't in your willpower. It's in the way your mind has been conditioned to operate in chaos mode. And this has a name in Japanese tradition: kokoro no ran, the disorder of the heart-mind. Stay with me until the end, because you're going to learn how the Japanese transform this dispersion into laser focus, and how this can completely change your relationship with productivity. What you're about to discover may surprise you, because it goes against everything you've been taught about discipline and motivation. And it starts with a simple but revolutionary concept, and this has a name in Japanese tradition: kokoro no ran, the disorder of the heart-mind. When you're in this state, each task seems like an insurmountable mountain, and paralysis takes over. But here's what changes everything. The Japanese don't treat this with more pressure or guilt. They treat it with something that seems too simple to work, but carries ancient wisdom. Before I reveal what it is, I need to ask you a very honest question. What area of your life do you procrastinate the most? Work, studies, health, or relationships? Go to the comments now and tell me, because did you know that every time you leave a comment like this, you're helping spread the teachings of Japanese philosophy to more people? Your response not only helps me create even more targeted content for you, but also creates a community of people who are on the same path of transformation. So comment below and be part of this exclusive community focused on truly transforming lives. And look, if you've gotten this far and haven't liked this video yet, do it now. Seriously. YouTube works like this. When you like it, the platform understands that the content is valuable and shows it to many more people who need this message. It's literally one click that can change someone's life today, and it's free. So leave that like now, because you're part of this chain of transformation. Oh, and before continuing, check if you're already subscribed to the channel, because the next videos I'm preparing are part of a complete series to forge unshakable discipline, strong mentality, and prepare you to enter 2026 on another level. If you're not subscribed, you'll lose the thread. So click there, subscribe, and let's go on this journey together. Now yes, let's get to what really matters. The secret that Japanese masters discovered about overcoming procrastination starts with something that goes against everything you've learned: the real problem of procrastination. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what I'm going to reveal to you now is something that nobody explains this way. Procrastination doesn't happen because you don't have time. It happens because you have too many intentions happening at the same time in your head. Think with me. How many tabs do you have open right now in your mind? That project you started and didn't finish, that course that's halfway done, that workout you promised to. A resume Monday, that difficult conversation you've been postponing for weeks. All of this running simultaneously, consuming your mental energy like heavy programs crashing an old computer. And you know what's more cruel? Each of these uncompleted intentions generates an invisible layer of guilt. You look at the day and feel like you did a lot, but when you lie down at night, that feeling of silent failure hits. Because deep down, you know, there was movement, but there was no real progress. Japanese philosophy has a devastating saying for this state: a samurai with two swords in mind loses, because while he's deciding which one to use, the opponent has already defeated him. Your modern brain lives exactly in this internal war. It's not lack of capacity, it's excess of open fronts. And here's the hidden truth that completely changed my journey. Zen masters realized that the human mind wasn't made to manage multiple intentions with the same intensity. They created a principle called Ichigo-Zammai, one encounter, one life. Translating to our context, one task, one moment, one complete delivery. When you fragment your attention, you're not being productive. You're being defeated by the illusion that doing more things at the same time is synonymous with efficiency. But real transformation, the one that generates true impact in your life, comes from the opposite. It comes from the decision to close the tabs, to choose one sword, and completely master the strike. Comment. There. I will close the tabs in my mind if you understood the message. What is Ichigyo-Zammai? Now comes the part that may seem too simple to be true, but carries a frightening depth. There's a practice in Japanese philosophy called Ichigyo-Zammai. And when you understand what this truly means, everything changes. Literally translated, it means one action, one focus, one whole spirit. Seems basic, right? But wait, because the application of this is where the real transformation lives. Samurais trained this mentality from a young age. When an archer pulled the bowstring, he wasn't thinking about the target, the technique, the result, or what would come next. He was completely fused with that single movement. The arrow, the bow, the breath, everything was one thing. There was no mental division. There was no, I'll try to hit it. There was only the pure act of releasing the arrow. And you know what's most impressive? They didn't call this effort. They called it decision. Because focus in Japanese tradition isn't about trying to concentrate more. It's about eliminating everything that isn't essential in that moment. It's about entering the act with total presence. There's a saying that masters repeated to apprentices: the samurai doesn't try, he enters. Do you feel the difference? Trying is hesitating. Entering is committing completely. It's putting your whole spirit into a single action, as if that were the only thing that exists in the universe at that instant. And look, this isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole. When you wash dishes practicing Ichigyo-Zammai, you're not thinking about tomorrow's report. You're washing dishes as if it were the most important task of your life at that moment. When you write an email, you write that email, nothing more. No tabs open in the browser, no notifications calling for attention, no voice in your head saying, you should be doing something else. The revelation here is brutal. Procrastination disappears when you stop doing several things poorly and start doing one thing at a time with total intention. And the impact of this on your productivity and your peace of mind is something you only understand when you experience it. Comment there. I will enter, not try, if this made sense to you. And since we're talking about transforming your mind and building discipline that really works, I need to tell you something. I've prepared complementary material to everything we're talking about. Here, it's a complete guide called The Path of Japanese Discipline. This material will show you exactly how to transform your ordinary mind into a disciplined, focused, and unshakable mind. A mind capable of acting every day, even when motivation fails, even when fatigue weighs, and even when nobody's watching. It's not about fleeting enthusiasm or that excitement that lasts 3 days. It's about developing the mental power that sustains permanent results. This ancestral method teaches how to truly eliminate procrastination, master unstable emotions, and build the silent consistency that shapes true winners. There are already more than 1 million copies that have reached people's hands around the world, and now you can be part of this transformation too. If it makes sense to you, take a look at the material I left here below in the description. This content is complementary to what we talked about here and can save you a lot of time in practice because it gathers everything directly and applicably. But look, this material can go offline at any time. It's here in the description now, but I might take it down in the next few days. So, if it's useful to you, take advantage while it's still available. Now, back to what really matters. Why 10 days are enough? Now I want to go even deeper into this subject because many people hear about 10 days and think, that's too little time, it won't change anything. But here's the truth that few understand. 10 days don't change your life. They change your identity in relation to focus. And when your identity changes, your life follows along because you become another person making the decisions. Japanese philosophy always knew this. They didn't train warriors for years waiting for discipline to magically appear one day. They created intense cycles of mental reconditioning because the human brain doesn't need decades to break a pattern. It needs conscious and intentional repetition for enough time for the new behavior to become more familiar than the old one. And 10 days of real practice without failures, without excuses, are more powerful than months of empty intention. You know what the big secret is? Self-confidence doesn't come from motivational speeches, beautiful phrases, or colorful planners. It comes from internal proof. It comes from you seeing yourself fulfilling what you promised yourself. Each day you complete, each task you finish with total presence, you're literally reprogramming the image you have of who you are. You stop being that person who always gives up and start being that person who finishes what they start. And look, this is brutal when you understand. You don't believe in yourself because you don't see yourself following through. Simple as that. It's not lack of capacity, it's lack of internal evidence. You spent years accumulating proof that you can't maintain focus, that you always abandon halfway, that discipline isn't for you. So your mind believes that. But when you reverse the game and start accumulating proof to the contrary, everything changes. 10 consecutive days of impeccable execution create a crack in the old belief. And from that crack, a new version of you is born. Japanese masters called this shugyo, the training that forges the spirit through repeated action. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent enough for your brain to realize, wait, I really can do this. Comment there. I will prove myself to myself if you're ready for this journey. The daily ritual of Ichigyo-Zammai. Now comes the part where all this leaves theory and enters your routine for real. Because knowledge without application is just entertainment. So let me show you exactly how you apply Ichigyo-Zammai in your daily life, in a simple but profound way. First step, choose one critical task per day. Just one. Not 3, not 5. 1. The one that, if you finish today, will make you lie down knowing the day was worthwhile. It could be writing that report, studying a specific chapter, recording that video, resolving that pending issue that's been chasing you for weeks, but it has to be one. Because Japanese philosophy doesn't believe in multitasking. It believes in depth. Second, eliminate distractions. And here there's no middle ground. Clean environment, phone away, notifications off, door closed if possible. Zen monks prepared the space before meditating because they knew the external environment directly influences the internal state. You can't have total focus if the scenario around you is screaming for attention. Third, set a time. Between 30 and 90 minutes depending on the task. It's not all day. It's a sacred block of time where you'll be completely immersed in that single action. During this period, nothing else exists. No email, no message, no brilliant idea that appears out of nowhere. Write it down later. Now is the time to execute. Fourth, execution in total silence. Don't put on music, podcasts, nothing. Just you and the task. Samurais trained in silence because they understood that external noise fragments attention. In silence, you hear your own breathing, feel the flow of action, enter what the Japanese call mushin, mind without mind, where there's no effort, only pure movement. Fifth, conscious closure. When you finish, stop, breathe, recognize internally, done. Don't run off to the next thing. This moment of recognition is what seals the transformation in your identity. You just prove to yourself that you can, and that matters more than it seems. Do you understand now? It's not about productivity, it's about presence. It's about you being whole in what you're doing, and that changes everything. Comment there. I will practice total presence if you're going to apply this today. The biggest mistake that destroys the method. Now, I need to warn you about something that destroys all of this before it even begins, and it's not what you imagine. The biggest mistake isn't giving up, it's negotiating with your mind. Let me explain this better because this is one of the most important revelations you'll hear. You know that moment when you're about to start the ritual, but that internal voice appears saying, just today I'll stop, tomorrow I'll do better. Or today was busy, I'll make up for it tomorrow with more time. Seems harmless, right? Seems even reasonable. But that's exactly where the poison lies. Because when you allow the method to become optional, it stops being a method and becomes just another good intention that will die in the drawer of broken promises. Japanese philosophy is brutal on this point. A samurai doesn't negotiate with what has already been decided. When he makes a commitment, there's no middle ground. There's no, today I'm tired, so I'll do it halfway. There's no, I'll start next Monday because this week is difficult. These internal negotiations are the silent cancer that kills discipline before it's even born. And you know why? Because every time you negotiate, you're training your mind not to trust your own decisions. It's like building a house, and every day taking a brick from the foundation, thinking it makes no difference. At first, it seems everything's fine, but eventually everything collapses. The hard truth is this: decision without commitment is illusion. You didn't really decide if you're still open to negotiating depending on how you feel that day. Really deciding is cutting off any possibility of retreat. It's assuming that it will happen regardless of emotional climate, busy schedule, or fluctuating motivation. Zen masters had a principle called Fudoshin, immovable mind. It doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible with life. It means being unshakable with what you decided is essential. And this, my friend, this completely changes the game. Because when your mind realizes there's no room for negotiation, it stops spending energy trying to convince you to give up. And all that energy returns to execution. Comment there. No negotiation, only execution, if you got the message. What happens after 10 days? And now comes the question that's hammering in your head. What really happens after these 10 days? What truly changes? Let me be honest with you, it's not magic. You won't wake up on the 11th day as a completely different person, with all problems solved and life organized like a bank commercial. But what happens is much deeper and more lasting than any superficial transformation. First, you'll feel more focus. Not that forced focus that lasts half an hour and then disappears, but a focus that has become familiar, almost natural. Your mind will stop jumping from thought to thought all the time, because it was trained to commit to one thing at a time. It's as if the mental noise drastically decreased, that constant internal conversation, that feeling of always being divided between 1,000 things. This starts to quiet down. Second, and perhaps most important, you'll recover self-respect. You know that invisible weight of carrying broken promises? It starts to disappear, because now you have concrete evidence that when you decide something, you follow through. And that, my friend, that rebuilds self-confidence in a way that no motivational speech can. Third, you'll feel the beginning of real discipline. Not that discipline that depends on being inspired or having a good day, but the discipline that works precisely on bad days, on tiring days, on days when you have no desire at all. The Japanese call this gammon, the ability to endure discomfort with dignity and move forward anyway. And lastly, you'll experience a sense of control over your own life that perhaps you haven't felt in years. Not control over everything that happens around you, because that's impossible, but control over how you respond, over where you place your attention, over what you actually execute. And this feeling, this internal certainty that you can conduct your journey, is what separates those who live on autopilot from those who build their own destiny. I'm not promising perfection, I'm promising clarity and internal strength. Comment there. I'm ready for clarity if you're going to start this cycle now. The lesson that remains now, I want to go even deeper into this subject because there's an ancestral truth that Japanese masters repeated for centuries and that summarizes everything we've talked about so far. It's simple but devastating when you really absorb it. Let me share this with you in a way that will be marked. The mind that tries to do everything does nothing. Think about that for a second. How many times did you finish the day exhausted, feeling like you worked the whole time but looked back and saw nothing concrete finished? It's because you were trying to embrace the whole world with your arms, and the world is too big. Your mind fragmented in so many directions that none of them received enough energy to generate real results. You were busy, but you weren't productive. You were in motion, but you weren't advancing. Now comes the turn. The mind that chooses one thing masters itself. When you decide really to focus all your attention on a single action at a time, something changes internally. You stop being hostage to dispersion. You stop living in mental chaos. And you start experiencing what samurais called true power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. Internal mastery. The ability to consciously direct your own energy instead of letting it leak in 1,000 different directions. And here's the final impact of this journey. Whoever masters themselves is never again a slave to procrastination. Because procrastination isn't just postponing tasks. It's living under the command of your impulses, your fears, your undisciplined mind. But when you train, when you practice Ichigyo-Zammai, When you prove to yourself that you can choose and execute, you break the invisible chains that kept you trapped. You become truly free, not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. This is the revelation that changes everything. It's not about doing more. It's about being more whole in what you do. It's about recovering control of your own mind and consequently your own life. Comment there, "I choose to master myself," if this message touched you deeply. And look, if you got here with me, first I want to thank you from the heart, because this shows that you're really committed to this transformation. And if this content made sense to you, if somehow it touched something you needed to hear, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, because what we build here isn't just about random videos, it's about forging mentality, discipline, and a life with more purpose. And I want you to be part of this. Leave a comment here below saying, "I go beyond laziness," because when you declare publicly, when you commit not only to yourself, but to this community, the weight of the decision becomes more real. And I'll be here reading each one, accompanying you on this journey. If you like this content and it truly added value to you, buy me a coffee. The link is here in the video description. It's a simple way for you to support the channel and help me continue bringing this type of transformative content. And of course, leave that like too, because besides being free, it shows YouTube that it's worth spreading this message to more people. Oh, and there's complete material about Japanese discipline that I left pinned in the first comment. Take a look there, because it complements everything we talked about here in an even more practical and profound way. And before you go, there's a video here on the side that perfectly complements this subject. Click and continue with me there, because the journey doesn't end here. See you in the next one. See you soon.